This Sunday, America will commemorate the 21-year anniversary of the somber 9/11 terror attacks. And joining us now is someone who miraculously survived the attack on the Pentagon that terrible day. With us is Texas State Senator and retired U.S. Army veteran, Lieutenant Colonel Brian Birdwell. Brian, I just have to tell you, it's hard to believe it's 21 years since 9/11. Your story is just amazing. It's a miracle that you survived. You were the lone survivor in the E-ring of the Pentagon. And I used to be based in Washington. I covered a lot of Washington. I know exactly where that E-ring is. What goes through your mind when you think, first off, about the anniversary? Now it's been 21 years.
Yeah. Well, you're right, Rita, that there's times it seems like yesterday and there's times it seems like a lifetime ago. The things that I think about is the Lord still sits on his throne, because you're exactly right. It's a miracle for me to be alive. You don't survive an 80-ton jet coming through the building at 530 miles an hour with still 3,000 gallons of jet fuel, because, the Army made me a tough guy. And in the slide you're putting up, you can see my window that I sat at. But the things that I think most about, Rita, those that we lost that day, and my two coworkers, Cheryl and Sandy, that we face an enemy that doesn't, concern itself with a fair fight, and whether it's women, children, or anybody else that's being injured. But the other thing I think about too is it's not just that day and those lost that day, but those that we lost in the next 20 years. As it related to, going to Afghanistan, Iraq, Djibouti, the Philippines, men and women that have raised their right hand, took that oath of commissioning or enlistment to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and have life-altering scars, whether they be emotional or those that are physical that you can see. Those are the folks that I think about. But what a blessing it is to live in this great nation. The Lord gave me the rest of my life, and with our maladies, there's still no better place on God's green earth than the United States of America, and if I may be so bold, Texas. But, I've gotten to see over the last 21 years things that Mel thought and that we thought in my time in ICU before my passing, or when I expected to pass, that things that we would see that she would see as a widow. Matt graduating from Texas Tech and getting married, to our fabulous daughter-in-law, Anne Marie. Grandkids coming along, Elijah and Lily just celebrated a birthday, and I get to serve the people of Senate District 22 in Texas. So there's a lot of life left to be lived, because this is the greatest place on God's green earth.
Absolutely, and how beautiful you've been able to share all those occasions. Brian, my friend Barbara Olson was on that plane, on the Pentagon plane that crashed in, and I knew Barbara very well. And I remember when I saw the picture up on the TV, seeing her face and putting it together that she was on the flight and calling her husband and he was telling exactly, and he was telling him what was happening. And so for me, it's very, very personal too. And I think how amazing that you are here to share that story. And your story of survival is remarkable. 60% of your body was burned. How did you cope? And also the role of your faith, because you said you really feel like God put you here for a purpose, that you survived. You even said you cried to Jesus, I'm coming to see you, because you were in that corridor. You went to the men's room and you were in the corridor, and it was engulfed in flames and smoke. And yet here you are today. How did you persevere?
Well, first and foremost, my faith in the Lord. I've been a believer since 1971. And so, sometimes people ask, did you believe, after or before? And certainly the answer is before. I just hadn't been as tested. In those moments that, particularly in ICU, when the pain thresholds you're dealing with such the depth of such burns, I pleaded for the Lord to finish what the terrorists had started. But the Lord had other plans, and my fabulous wife, Mel, was beside me. Sometimes she'll say she nagged me through it, but she certainly dragged me through it, because there were times that I wanted to give up. The Army doesn't train us to do that, but that's how I felt. But we would eventually find our inspiration in Scripture. Our favorite verse is 1 Peter 5:10. After you have suffered a little while, the God of all grace will himself perfect, confirm, strengthen, and establish you. And whether it's suffering on the national scale as it relates to being an act of war, whether it's economic or financial suffering, whether it's marital suffering, professional suffering, the Lord keeps his promises. And I found my strength in him because, he went through a lot more tougher ordeal. I stepped out of the men's restroom and only had a couple of minutes to think about my death. He stepped out of the perfection of eternity and knew the death he was going to die long before we ever arrived. So that's the strength that carries us through, and still to this day, too.
Well, Brian Birdwell, you are a walking miracle, and we're very grateful that you're here today to share this with all of us. Thank you. It's an honor to have you here.
Thanks, Rita.
Thank you.
Thank you.